Namo Phat, good morning. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. Third, mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I vow to cultivate responsibility and learn ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. I'm determined not to engage in sexual relations without love and a long-term commitment. To preserve the happiness of myself and others, I'm determined to respect my commitments and the commitments of others. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse, to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Our Dharma reading today are sections on the four elements and the sense realm from Ajahn Thiradhammo's book, Working with the Five Hindrances. When there is sensual desire for other things, a very useful reflection is upon the four elemental qualities, dhatu, of earth, fire, water, and air. They represent hardness or solidity, heat and maturation, cohesion and binding, and distension and mobility. All materiality is composed in varying degrees of these four elements. Thus, if we observe the mind obsessing about food, for example, reflecting that it is just the four elemental qualities may help to alleviate the longing. That piece of chocolate cake is actually just a combination of earth, fire, water, and air, albeit in a tasty form. Reducing it to its elemental qualities can perhaps reduce the usually inflated taste fantasy. How tasty is earth or fire? Not only does this reflection help to reduce the desire for the object, it can also be a source of clear insight into the truth of impersonality. The body, too, is just an impersonal composite of earth, fire, water, and air. You may recall that the Buddha taught that the escape from sensual desires was to clearly understand their origin. Since sensual desires depend on the senses, developing awareness of the perceptual process as it occurs through the senses is a most important way to understand how desire for these sense impressions arises. It's useful to know the process intellectually in order to be able to observe more clearly the series of processes which occur, mostly exceedingly quickly. Of course, it is most useful to be able to observe the process directly, as there can be many nuances. Sense perceptions happen in the course of ordinary life, but one of the first things we observe is how much perception is merely functional, that is, occurs as a means of registering impressions, and how much is added on through our own subjective involvement, our own liking and disliking, wanting or rejecting. Some sense impressions may trigger memories, emotions, reactions, and these become mental impressions which trigger off more reactions. The second thing we observe about sense perceptions is how different, varied, and changeable they are. We can look at the same scene more than once and have quite different impressions of it. Is it really the same scene, or the same eye that sees, or mind which perceives? If we understand that the senses and sense perceptions are unreliable, why are we desiring them? It's as if we sometimes desire a mirage. Some of the things that we perceive are just fantasies or illusions. If we can understand more clearly the nature of these senses, not just intellectually, but by actually seeing clearly how distorted perceptions can be, we may realize that in fact we're desiring stuff which is very unreliable. So it's foolish to keep pursuing it. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thanks so much for joining me today.